You say you want success. You say you want growth. You say you want a better life. But what if the biggest obstacle in your life is not your circumstances, not your enemies, not your lack of opportunity, but you? What if part of your mind is quietly working against you, canceling your momentum, delaying your progress, destroying your confidence? This is the hidden psychology of self-sabotage. And until you understand it, you will keep fighting battles you don't even know you're creating. There is a strange and frustrating experience that many people go through in life. You set a goal. You feel motivated. You begin making progress. For a moment, everything seems to be moving in the right direction. And then something happens. You delay the next step. You lose momentum. You suddenly feel tired, distracted, or uncertain. Opportunities appear, but you hesitate. The strange part is this: nothing external stopped you. No one blocked your path. No major obstacle appeared. Yet somehow, your own behavior slowly dismantled the progress you were making. This is what psychologists call self-sabotage. Self-sabotage happens when your actions, habits, or decisions quietly interfere with the goals you say you want. It is rarely obvious. It rarely feels intentional. In fact, most people don't even realize they are doing it. They blame circumstances. They blame timing. They blame bad luck. But underneath those explanations, something deeper is happening. Your mind is trying to protect you. Your brain is designed to keep you safe, not necessarily to make you successful. And sometimes, the very changes required for success feel unfamiliar and risky to your subconscious mind. So it slows you down. It creates doubt. It creates distraction. It creates hesitation. Not because you are weak, but because part of your mind believes staying the same is safer than becoming something new. Until you understand this invisible enemy within, you will keep fighting battles that seem external, when the real conflict is happening inside you. One of the most surprising truths about human psychology is this: the brain often prefers familiar discomfort over unfamiliar success. Think about that for a moment. Even if your current situation is frustrating, even if you are tired of your routine, your mind has adapted to it. It understands the patterns. It knows what to expect. Familiar problems feel predictable. But success introduces uncertainty. A new career path means new expectations. A new opportunity means new pressure. A higher level of success means more visibility, more responsibility, and more judgment. Your brain interprets all of this as potential risk. So even when you consciously desire change, your subconscious mind may quietly resist it. This resistance doesn't appear dramatically. It shows up in small behaviors. You procrastinate on important tasks. You distract yourself with less meaningful work. You delay decisions that could move your life forward. And because these actions seem minor, you don't recognize them as self-sabotage. But over time, these small delays accumulate into stagnation. The brain isn't trying to destroy your progress. It's trying to maintain psychological stability. Unfortunately, stability and growth rarely exist in the same place. Growth requires stepping into unfamiliar territory. And unfamiliar territory triggers the brain's protective instincts. The challenge of personal development is learning how to move forward even when your mind tries to pull you back toward the comfort of what it already knows. Most people talk about the fear of failure. But there is another fear that is rarely discussed: the fear of success. At first, this sounds strange. Why would anyone fear achieving the things they desire? But success changes your life in ways that the mind cannot fully predict. Success increases expectations. It attracts attention. It raises the standards people hold you to. When you succeed, people begin to watch you differently. They expect consistency. They expect growth. They expect results. And suddenly, maintaining that success becomes another pressure. For some people, this pressure feels overwhelming before it even arrives. So their mind quietly prevents them from reaching that level. They delay the project that could elevate them. They hesitate before taking the opportunity. They abandon progress when things start improving. From the outside, it looks irrational. But psychologically, it makes sense. If success feels like it will expose you to judgment, pressure, or expectations you are not ready to handle, your mind may unconsciously protect you from reaching it. Self-sabotage becomes a way of avoiding the emotional weight that success might bring. Ironically, the very thing you say you want may trigger the anxiety that stops you from pursuing it fully. Until you recognize this hidden fear, you may keep stopping yourself at the exact moment your life is about to change. Another powerful reason people sabotage their progress is identity conflict. Your mind builds a story about who you are. Maybe you see yourself as someone who struggles financially. Maybe you see yourself as someone who always plays a small role in life. Maybe you see yourself as someone who almost succeeds, but never quite gets there. Over time, this story becomes familiar. It becomes part of your identity. And identity is powerful. When opportunities appear that challenge that story, your mind experiences internal tension. If you suddenly begin achieving things that contradict your old identity, it can feel uncomfortable, even if those achievements are positive. Your subconscious asks a quiet question. Is this really who we are? If your internal identity does not match your external progress, the mind may attempt to restore balance by pulling you back toward the familiar version of yourself. This is why some people rise quickly and then suddenly collapse back into old habits. Their external growth outpaced their internal identity. Real transformation requires more than changing behavior. It requires updating the story you believe about yourself. When your identity expands, your actions begin to align with the new version of who you believe you are capable of becoming. For most of human history, belonging to a group was essential for survival. Being rejected by the tribe could mean danger. Even today, our brains carry that ancient sensitivity to social judgment. Success often brings visibility. When you start improving your life, people notice. When you pursue ambitious goals, people form opinions. Some will admire you. Others may criticize you. For many people, this possibility creates discomfort. The mind begins asking questions. What will people say? What if I fail publicly? What if others think I've changed? Rather than face that potential judgment, some individuals unconsciously shrink their ambitions. They stay within boundaries that feel socially safe. They pursue goals quietly instead of boldly. They abandon progress if it attracts too much attention. This is another subtle form of self-sabotage. Your desire for acceptance competes with your desire for growth. And sometimes, the need to belong wins. But growth always involves standing apart from your previous identity and sometimes from the expectations others place on you. Learning to tolerate judgment is part of becoming the person you were meant to be. The comfort zone is one of the most misunderstood concepts in personal development. People often imagine it as a physical environment, a familiar job, a predictable routine, a safe lifestyle. But psychologically, the comfort zone is not about comfort. It is about predictability. Your brain feels calm when it can predict outcomes. It feels safe when it understands what will happen next. Growth disrupts that predictability. A new challenge introduces unknown variables. A new opportunity forces you to adapt. A new level of success brings unfamiliar responsibilities. Even if those changes could improve your life, the uncertainty can trigger internal resistance. Your mind whispers subtle excuses. Maybe later. I should wait until I'm more prepared. Now isn't the right time. These excuses feel reasonable. But often they are just the mind's attempt to return to familiar territory. Over time, staying inside this psychological comfort zone can become addictive. It protects you from discomfort, but it also prevents expansion. Breaking this cycle requires a deliberate willingness to experience temporary uncertainty. Because everything meaningful lives just beyond the border of what currently feels predictable. At its core, self-sabotage is often an emotional defense mechanism. Your brain remembers past emotional pain, rejection, embarrassment, failure, disappointment. Even if those experiences happened years ago, your mind stores them as warnings. When a new opportunity appears that resembles those past situations, your subconscious may activate protective behaviors. You delay the action that could expose you to rejection. You avoid the challenge that could lead to disappointment. You lower your effort to soften the impact of potential failure. From a psychological perspective, this is the brain attempting to protect your emotional well-being. But protection can become limitation. If you avoid every situation that carries the possibility of emotional discomfort, you will also avoid many situations that lead to growth. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to act even when your mind reminds you of past pain. Understanding that self-sabotage often comes from emotional protection allows you to approach your own resistance with awareness rather than shame. Your mind is trying to help you. But sometimes the protection it offers keeps you from becoming the person you are capable of being. Procrastination is one of the most common forms of self-sabotage. But procrastination is rarely about laziness. More often, it is about emotional avoidance. When a task feels overwhelming, uncertain, or personally meaningful, it carries psychological pressure. Completing the task exposes you to evaluation. If you try and fail, that failure becomes real. If you never try, the possibility of success remains safely hypothetical. So the mind delays. You organize your workspace instead of starting. You research endlessly instead of executing. You convince yourself that preparation is progress. Procrastination becomes a shield. It protects your self-image by postponing the moment when reality might challenge it. But every delay has a cost. Momentum fades. Opportunities pass. Confidence slowly erodes. The longer procrastination continues, the harder action feels. Breaking this pattern requires recognizing procrastination not as a productivity problem, but as an emotional one. When you address the underlying fear, action becomes easier. Escaping self-sabotage begins with awareness. Once you recognize the patterns, you can start changing them. First, pay attention to the moments when you hesitate before important action. Those moments often reveal the internal dialogue that drives self-sabotage. Second, focus on small commitments. Large goals can trigger anxiety. But small, consistent actions slowly retrain your mind to associate progress with safety instead of danger. Third, update your identity. Instead of telling yourself, "I always struggle with this," begin reinforcing a new narrative, "I am someone who grows through action." Finally, practice emotional tolerance. Discomfort is not a signal to stop. It is often a signal that you are approaching meaningful change. The mind adapts through repetition. Each time you act despite hesitation, you weaken the old patterns of self-sabotage and strengthen a new identity built around courage and momentum. Over time, the resistance that once stopped you begins to fade. The most powerful realization about self-sabotage is this: you are not broken. Your mind is simply trying to protect you using patterns it learned in the past. But those patterns were designed for safety, not for growth. When you begin to see these patterns clearly, something important happens. You stop blaming circumstances. You stop questioning your potential. You start understanding the internal forces that shape your behavior. And with understanding comes choice. You can notice hesitation without obeying it. You can feel fear without surrendering to it. You can recognize the voice of self-sabotage, and choose a different response. Growth does not require eliminating fear. It requires moving forward even when fear is present. Every time you take action despite resistance, you weaken the invisible barriers that once held you back. And slowly, the version of yourself that once felt impossible begins to feel natural. Because becoming better is not about defeating your mind. It is about teaching your mind that growth is safe. This is Growth Mindset Lab, the psychology of becoming better. Before you go, pause for a moment and think about this. Self-sabotage is not proof that you are weak. It is proof that a part of your mind is trying to protect you. Somewhere in your past, your brain learned a lesson. If I don't try, I can't fail. If I stay small, I can't be judged. If I delay, I don't have to face fear. But protection that once helped you survive can quietly become the prison that keeps you from growing. The good news? The moment you become aware of self-sabotage, you begin to take back control. So here are 4 simple action steps to break the cycle. Step 1, catch the pattern. The next time you procrastinate, avoid something important, or doubt yourself, stop and ask. What am I actually afraid of? Fear loses power the moment you name it. Step 2, shrink the task. Your brain resists things that feel overwhelming. Instead of saying, I need to finish everything today, tell yourself, I will just work on this for 5 minutes. 5 minutes often turns into momentum. Step 3, replace the inner voice. Self-sabotage thrives on negative self-talk. When your mind says, I'm not ready, replace it with, I can improve as I go. Growth always looks messy in the beginning. Step 4, celebrate small wins. Your brain learns through reward. Every small step forward rewires your mindset from fear to progress. And over time, those small wins create a powerful identity shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone who quits, and start seeing yourself as someone who moves forward anyway. Remember this. The biggest battle in life is rarely outside of you. It happens quietly, inside your mind. But the moment you understand your psychology, you gain the power to rewrite your behavior, your habits, and ultimately your future. If this video opened your eyes to something within you, make sure you subscribe to Growth Mindset Lab. Because here, we don't just study psychology. We use it to become better.